Welcome back to another episode of our APAC Retail series. If you've ever wondered what retail looks like when emotional intelligence is the business strategy, this episode is for you. Mecca Brands is Australia's leading prestige beauty retailer. Think over 110 stores, a cult-like following, and a reputation for creating immersive, joy-filled shopping experiences that feel more like a celebration than a transaction. But behind all that sparkle is culture, one that puts people first. And today we are going behind the scenes with the person leading that charge, Ian Burl, the Chief Retail Officer at Mecca. Ian believes emotional intelligence, or EQ, matters more than IQ. He spends every Friday in stores, not just to audit, but to listen, connect, and lead from the floor. And he's helping steer Mecca's next chapter through experience-driven retail, tech innovation, and a relentless focus on culture. In this conversation, we unpack how Mecca scales emotional retail, how Ian's approach to leadership challenges conventional metrics, and why sometimes slowing down is the fastest way to grow. Here's Paula Macadi, and this is episode 79 of my show. Welcome to OffBounds. Ian, welcome to OffBounds. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
So I just want to tell our audience how this happened. We didn't plan it, right?
No.
We accidentally had lunch together.
Yeah.
I was looking for a place. We looked for a place, you know what? And you told me the story of Mecca. And I was like, wait, you gotta tell this to our audience. So let's begin with that. What is Mecca?
Okay. Well, actually, before I tell you exactly my view of what Mecca is,
Okay.
I might go back a little bit further and tell you how I came across Mecca.
Okay.
Because I've only actually been at Mecca for 4 years. I spent most of my career in grocery retail, which is very different to beauty retail. But years ago, at a similar event, I was doing a speech, and it was about experiential retail in a world where sort of digital retail is taking over. And this was a long time ago when physical retailers thought it was the end. And I walked around a shopping center in Australia looking for examples of retailers that were doing experiential retail. And that's how I actually came across Mecca. A long time ago, before I worked there, Mecca was already doing experiential retail. For 28 years it's been doing it. Before anybody came up with the term, they were doing it. So I knew of Mecca years before I ended up working there. So when I was introduced to the team at Mecca and I ended up, getting a job there, it was kind of quite fitting that I'd done this research on them previously.
So you were already excited about the experiential retail side of things.
Yes, yeah. Yes. So I knew about Mecca, but I knew nothing about beauty. So it's been a very steep learning curve, and you have to understand it deeply. You have to understand the products. You have to understand the brands. So it's taken quite a while for me to, I would say, get up to speed that I need to be at.
And I'm sure you don't have so many steps in your skincare routine.
I have more than I used to.
Okay.
I can assure you of that. And off mic, I'll tell you some great products as well.
Okay.
But so what's Mecca? Well, first of all, it's the leading prestige beauty retailer in Australia and New Zealand. And it's an amazing customer experience. That's what makes it really different. I would say the key ingredients are that, and we curate the world's best beauty brands. So you end up with, the best experience, the best brands. You put it together, and that really brings together a community of people that are passionate about beauty. So I think that's the community that then makes it quite different from anywhere else.
But what makes experiential retail experience for Mecca? What is, because I haven't been to one, so you have to explain to me, if I walk into a store, what is the experience I'll have?
Well, so we've been at this conference for a week now, and I have met people from all over the world. That's why we come here. We connect with other retailers. Yeah. We learn from each other. And it has just blown me away that everybody knows Mecca. And it's incredibly fortunate to work there because you feel quite a lot of pride when people say, "Oh, I know Mecca." You've heard about it and you want to talk about it. So what makes it different? I think it's more than just the fact that it's experiential from design, from day one, right? So the founder, Jo Horgan, she set up a single store in 1997. That's how long it's been around. And at the very beginning, the principles, the beliefs, the mindsets, all the things that made it different then are the same beliefs that we stand by today, because it's still founder-led. Jo is still there. She's still,
it still has the founder mentality in the business.
Absolutely has a founder mentality. And I think what's different for me, having spent my entire career in large public companies, what's really different about Mecca is that we're not chasing the short-term metrics in the same way that other similar companies might be. So of course we talk about, the numbers, right? Of course we do. We have to plan, we have to manage.
It's a business afterwards. Right?
It's a business, right? But the difference is that that's not what gets people excited in Mecca. What gets people excited is the stories about the customers, the stories about the brands, the stories about the experiences. So just as an example, every single Monday morning, without fail, we get the entire team from the support center together in we've got one giant room, and Jo talks to the whole team about customer experiences that she's heard about in that week. And she's been doing that forever. And when she talks about a good customer experience, I think everybody feels like quite a collective sense of pride, and you can see everybody looking at each other and smiling, going, "That's beautiful." And
like a customer experience that a customer had in one of Mecca stores, or something like that she did that she had a great experience, so that she's bringing it
in a Mecca store. I mean, there are other stories we share there as well, but we get so many letters. This is the thing that makes it different, right? I think if you ask the audience here, how many times have you written to a retailer about an experience that was good? I bet you most people can't think of having done it more than a few times in their life, right?
I haven't.
You haven't done it, right? Because it takes...
Especially in a beauty retailer.
No. For someone to sit down and write a letter to thank or to talk about an experience they had, you're only going to do that when you've had an experience which has truly moved you, right? It's truly profound. And I'm not exaggerating. We get those letters every week, tons and tons and tons of them. And it's because our team have kind of like, the culture is so that our team have been given the power to do what they need to do to make people feel their best. That is literally the goal of the company, is to help. We say to embolden through beauty, but it's to help people feel their best. And our team want to do that. We hire for empathy. We hire people that love beauty. And, we're not chasing down, like I said, these metrics to make it feel like a selling environment or something like that. They're there to solve problems, and they do it over and over again. And we get, like I said, because we talk about and we celebrate these experiences, it just creates a culture where that's what becomes most important.
I'm loving everything that I'm listening. I agree. Like I go to retail places when I have this amazing experience and I talk about it. One thing that we talked about yesterday when we were having lunch is Hamleys, right? Like that you mentioned that you inspired Hamleys for your stores. Hamleys is a toy store, but it makes everybody there happy. Like you don't have to be a kid to enjoy that store. How is a example of experience that I will have at Mecca?
I think, generally, we at Mecca don't talk necessarily about Hamleys, but we do talk about analogies from other retailers, and we're always looking for inspiration. I personally get inspiration from Hamleys because I see what happens to children in Hamleys, right? I mean, it is like, just another world, and you see the joy that they experience at every step of the journey because they have these experiences built in all the way through the store. And then you see what that does to the parents, because the parents are looking at the children and it's just such a joyful experience. People will queue up to get in there. Anybody who goes to London and takes their kids are going to Regent Street to get to Hamleys, right? Everybody does it. And when I was there last time, the thing that was on my mind was moving people upstairs in a retail store. So we have some stores with stairs and 2 levels. And it is quite hard to get people to want to go upstairs, right? And I look at Hamleys and it's on 6 floors. And everybody goes up all 6 floors. You kind of have to. That's the process. And no one complains about it there, because at the top of each floor is another entertainer or demonstration.
Your discovery.
Or discovery. And I think we we do similar things when we're designing stores. And, we've got a new flagship store, which we spoke about already, opening in Melbourne soon. I mean, we haven't taken cues from Hamleys, but it is really been designed as a theatre for human connection. So every single part of the journey has been thought about in terms of how it will create an environment for people to connect and experience joy and discover things together. So it's more than experiential, it's social. And I think that's quite similar to Hamleys.
Yeah, but like it's beauty, right? Like beauty, I think it's about the product, but it's also about how to use the product. Like, so you need some expertise. I'm thinking of me as a customer, right? Like I buy beauty products and I need expert help to find what is best for my body, what's best for my skin, what is best for what I'm looking for. I guess service play a huge role too.
I mean, what you're talking about, the expertise of the team,
Yeah.
is fundamental to the model of Mecca. And I would say it's probably another way in which we are slightly different to other beauty retailers. Now, every beauty retailer is going to educate their team to an extent. We educate them to a whole new level. And in fact, I don't know if we talk about these numbers very publicly, but we spend something like 4% of our revenue on education of our team and engagement of our team, right? It's just quite unbelievable. So when you go into a Mecca store, what you're likely to get is a team member who understands the products in an incredible level of detail. We are brand agnostic. That's another one of those things I was talking about from day one, is being a principle of the company from the outset, and it still is today. So you're not going to get a team member trying to, convince you that a particular brand is better than another brand, that you might get that in a different kind of retail environment. So they're brand agnostic. They're educated to understand the products in great detail so that they can find the best solution for you. But the thing that I think is really different about Mecca is that we train our team to listen, right? And, I've spoken about empathy throughout the conference and EQ, and not only do we recruit for empathy, we train for empathy. And because we have this great team, we also have this critical mass where if you come and join Mecca and you work in a store, you're going to see what's happening around you. You're going to become part of that system, part of that culture. And if you're not, you're going to be seen pretty quickly to be different. So you'll go into a store and the team will ask you questions. And they will keep asking you questions because that's the model. We've designed a framework that is an amazing human interaction, but they follow that framework as a guide to make sure that they're asking the right questions and they're finding the right solutions for you. And it becomes quite personal, which is why I think that empathy is important. It's quite intimate, and that's the experience that our customers have. And that's why they write to us, because our team are so well trained to do that. And honestly, even if they weren't that well trained, because you hire the right people and they love beauty and they love people and they love to serve this way, it's kind of what they probably will do naturally as well. But I think listening, I mean, how many times do you go into a retailer and the person you interact with truly asks you questions that help to bring out the information they need to serve you better? And then they listen.
They truly want to understand. Sometimes you're not actively listening, right? Like you're just like, yeah, whatever. But like if you really want to understand what the person is trying to say, or sometimes they don't even know what they're trying to say, but you can interpret, right? Like
that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. We can see through the data that we get from customers, our happiest customers are the ones who spend the most, right? And it's not because we're trying to get them to spend more. It's because we're trying to, solve the problems that they have or serve them the way that they want. But, it's no surprise that people that get home with more things, they're happier, right? They got more things to use, more things to try, right? So our team aren't afraid to, look for other ways that you may need products to help you. So they will do that, but they're not going after some sort of metric. They just want to interact with you and figure out what you need. And sometimes that will result in you getting quite a few products.
Well, I'm guilty of that. If I have a good experience, I tend to reward.
Reward yourself or reward the team?
Reward the retailer with my money and myself with the products that I bring home for sure. But One thing that you said, a few people that watched your session, I unfortunately didn't, that watched your session at NRF APAC said that you brought up that EQ is more important than IQ, or will be more important than IQ. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, this is something I sort of said off the cuff, and now a lot of people have asked me about this comment, which has become interesting because also I think people may have misquoted me slightly. And what I said, or certainly what I meant, was that in a world where, I mean, this whole conference has been about AI, right? And in a world where AI is doing so much more of the thinking work, the thinking is not going to be as valuable as it once was, right? So if you look all through history, the best paid jobs are the jobs that can be done by the people with the highest IQ, right? It's just obvious that's always been the case. And if you look at the kind of jobs that people get when they naturally have really high EQ, but they, you know, that's their natural characteristic, they go into jobs like teaching or care or nursing, you know, and these are jobs that have not attracted equal salaries over the history so far. And I think in a world where AI is able to do a lot of the thinking, there's going to be like a rebalancing where IQ is not going to be as treasured as it has been up until this point. And I think EQ is going to become more treasured. So I think there's going to be more value in having EQ than ever before. So I think that's great for people that are that way. That's their characteristic, their normal characteristic. And I think as well, in a work sense, I said that when technology is going to become so pervasive in everything that we do, and we know that AI is going to be driving our actions and our thinking, and many of the tasks that are currently done by people, actually the human interaction is going to become a real luxury. I think the intimacy can only exist between two people connecting deeply. And going back to your earlier question about what makes Mecca different, this is just something that's part of our culture, because from day one, that was the goal, right? To help people feel better. And when you follow these steps, it leads to intimacy, right? Like seeing each other deeply and understanding each other. And it's there's a lot in that for the team as well. It's not just, the customers, of course, it's the most important. It's what we do. It's why we do it. But we also see from our team satisfaction surveys that they also love working at Mecca. And I think it's because who doesn't enjoy, helping someone feel better, right? Who doesn't get some joy from that? So there's a lot in it for the team as well.
Yeah, you feel your impact. If somebody's sending a letter after to say that how something made them feel, or how such a great interaction they had, it means that you changed somebody's life even for a little bit, and that's priceless. Yeah.
Do you know, I have a story that I've told numerous times, so if anybody's heard it, I apologize, because it's one of my favorite stories about my experience of working at Mecca. I was in a store visiting, as I do regularly, and I was just standing talking to the store manager, but we were standing next to the makeup artistry area. So we have we do a lot of makeup services and other services. And I saw a lady walked in, and she saw her teenage daughter. Her daughter was having the makeup done. And when she took one look at her, she just burst into tears of joy, and they started hugging, and it was just a very emotional moment. And I was standing right there. And of course, it's sort of contagious, because the makeup artist then started crying, and the manager, and they all started sort of hugging and crying. It was just this like profound emotional experience. And here's me, relatively new, to this environment.
Did you cry?
I got close to crying, and that's not easy. It was. I certainly felt deeply what was going on here, and that's the kind of thing that doesn't really happen in retail. You don't go shopping and get that, right? It's not a retail experience, but we've created environments and settings where this sort of occurs organically, and the team want to be part of that. But when I talk about emotion, that it doesn't get more significant than that, right? You've got people who are working there, people who are shopping there, and they're both feeling something really, really deeply. And I don't need to look at any reports. I can tell you they're customers forever. The mum, the daughter, they're our customers forever.
That's a moment of connection, I guess. It's like when I was a kid and used to go to a toy store with my parents, that was a moment of connection that I had. It's almost like Yeah, a place that I'll go with my mom as a teenager to become prettier, to learn more about me, to learn more about my mom. It's like an engagement, a place to engage.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think we are already, like we're speaking so much about loneliness nowadays. And I think the trend is for us to become even more lonely as digital get better and more efficient. That these emotions are actually what is going to drive us to more humanity.
Yeah.
If I can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think stores will never die just because of that, because we still need that. Yeah.
Especially in beauty. I mean, it's a category that really needs physical experience. And of course, we will continue to improve the online experience as well. And technology will make things more practical and more useful and more, there are things now, you can try on makeup virtually and, so you can shop makeup online, which traditionally you want to get it right, the color match. But I think people, especially with certain products like fragrance, you have to be able to experience the fragrance. Even with skincare products, people want to touch it, you want to smell it. Of course, online, you're going to replenish the products that you like. But I think beauty is always going to be so much about the physical retail experience.
Yeah, I think like to find a new product, I will definitely go to a store. But if that product's about to be over and I just need another one, I'll need online.
Yeah.
I think that's when the online enter in beauty,
yeah.
I guess. Talking about that, is it possible to bring this experiential retail that Mecca is about online? Like, how do you do this omni-channel experience as emotion is such a core thing for the business?
I mean, that's a great question, and it's not an easy thing to do. I think any other retailer will face the same difficulties trying to create a human digital experience. So we try various different ways to make it as human as possible. Excuse me. The content we create, right? We create education. In fact, the education we create for our team, some of it we also give it to the customers as well. So these are things that are quite different that can also evoke an emotional experience. You want to make sure, of course, that the digital experience is also pain-free. I think that goes without saying, but we've invested in an enormous amount in making sure that the capability of the digital experience does just that. There's also the customer care. A lot of companies have outsourced customer care to other countries, to save money, or they have automated customer care. We've gone kind of a slightly different pathway, which is we've invested heavily in amazing technology to equip our customer care team to be, more helpful to the customers. And even in our customer care team, we get NPS north of 80 for customer care. Now, if you think about it, people contact customer care centers when they have had a poor experience, and quite often it's related to the online experience as well. It could be wondering where the package is or if it's late or something like that. But we also treat that as a super important touch point. So we have a very large customer care team because we want to make sure that there's a real human connection even when you are in that stage of the journey. And in fact, we hire people into the customer care team that aren't necessarily customer care professionals. We actually hire people from the stores as well who have got deep product knowledge and beauty expertise, because these calls and chats and emails, and even we do video if you want it through customer care, they often go off into products. The conversation often gets into products, and we want to make sure that we don't have to push the customer back to a store team to get that expertise. They can get it right there and then as well. And I think that's all part of the digital experience.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually, because technology is here, right? Technology can empower even more humanity. What kind of technologies are you using to empower your people to drive more better experiences?
So I think there's a couple of things I would say about this, which I've said earlier this week in the conference. First of all, we will look for every opportunity to leverage technology that will help our team serve customers better, right? What we won't do is introduce technology for the sake of technology. We also won't introduce technology that we think might interfere with an experience between the customer and the team member. And there are examples of that already that we could do more, and we've chosen not to. I'll give you a couple of examples. We do endless aisle, which means if you go into the store and you know what you want, but it's not available in that store, they'll order it for you. It'll arrive as soon as possible through the post. Or if a product is sold out, you can order that product and get fulfilled. They'll take care of it. Now, we could turn that into quite a significant channel, right? Where we could open up our entire, you can order anything through the store, right? We could advertise that and we could start to really expand that offer. But it's just not like the most amazing experience. It's not the way that our brands want to be represented. So we choose not to really push that at the moment because we don't want more people to do that until we are satisfied that it is absolutely commensurate with the overall experience. That's one. Another one would be, we have a clienteling solution. We call it Superhost. This is, trying to show how amazing our hosts are. And I want to come back to why we call our team hosts as well, actually. But Superhost is this clienteling app that we've developed. And we haven't put it into all stores yet. And we haven't released all features to this app yet. And part of the reason is that we're not satisfied that bringing the device between the team member and the customer is additive to the human interaction and the experience. So we're sort of stalling on taking it any further until we can be satisfied that the technology enhances and doesn't detract from that sort of feeling of human connection and luxury. So they're just a couple of examples of what we're sort of not doing or we're not fulfilling to our full potential. But there are things we are doing. If you look at the flagship store, there's this amazing innovation, which is a device. It's actually developed by Puig, which is a Spanish fragrance company, where a customer can smell many, many more scents without becoming overwhelmed. Because it's well known with fragrance, if you smell 2 or 3, you get overwhelmed and you can no longer differentiate. And if you're buying a really, luxurious fragrance, it's a big investment for some people.
Yeah, it takes some consideration.
You don't want to get it wrong.
It's not impulsive. Yeah.
No, if you get it wrong, you're going to be really disappointed when you get home. So we want customers to get it right and we want them to take their time. So this technology, which will be available in the flagship, helps us to work with the customer to develop a personal profile for fragrance. And then that is more likely to lead to them making the right choice that they're happy with. So there's a bit of technology there, and we have a few other examples where we're using technology in the flagship store like that and some other stores. But it's much more for us about the human process that comes with the technology. It's much more about that. We have skin diagnostic machines in some stores, that we will have that in our flagship store as well. We're not the only people to do that. There are other people doing various forms of skin diagnosis, even just using simple cameras, right? But it's what comes afterwards. It's the consultation that comes afterwards, because as you probably know as a customer, dealing with skin concerns can be very personal. It can become an intimate moment where you need to trust the person that you're dealing with. And we focus on the team being able to be trustworthy and create an experience that the customer feels safe, feels seen, and just feels better after going through a process of what is quite mechanical, having a skin diagnosis by looking into a machine.
When we were talking, you also mentioned that you weren't looking so much into efficiency, which is absolutely the opposite of everyone I talk to.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked me, because I want to make sure that I probably justify that comment a little bit better. We want to be efficient, right? Who wouldn't want to be efficient? We want to be efficient so that we can unlock our team to serve better, right? Or we can unlock investment to put towards better use, right? For example, for our brands as well, our brands are our partners, yeah? We don't treat our brands like suppliers or vendors. They're our partners, and we take, great pride in their achievements and their performance. But that aside, right, I think about efficiency. In fact, I said earlier, my whole career was in grocery. Grocery retail is about efficiency, right? I've had to retrain because all the things we used to do in my previous work was to find small ways to get more and more and more efficient so we could reduce our costs, because it's a small margin business and it's essential that you bring your costs down to the lowest possible that you can. But what I said about emotion over efficiency is I'm challenging everybody, especially people who are developing technology, to think this way. Because if physical retail is going to get better and better and better, it has to become much more of an experience, but much more about entertainment and much more about socializing and pleasure and all these things. Because eventually, you are going to be able to do most of your shopping online instantaneously. And in some markets, we heard some other speakers talk about it, in some markets, digital or e-commerce sales are half of retail, right? It's astonishing. It's not like that in Australia, but it might be one day. So as this happens, it's even more important that retail just continues to innovate and get better and better and better. So my challenge to everybody is that let's use the technology, right, to find ways to drive this experience better. And the way that you make an experience better is by thinking about emotion. So I'm saying that's what we should be doing. Don't be going after efficiency the way that we always have in the past in retail.
And given that, you have how many stores?
About 110.
110 stores. Sounds like, do you think emotion is scalable?
That is an excellent question. Emotion is absolutely scalable, but it's not easy to do. It's very hard to copy, which is another reason why do people, write these letters to us, right? I think we have found a way to do that. It's not easy because you do have to invest very, very heavily in your team. I mentioned that earlier, and in the level of service that you're able to offer, probably more than others would. It's also scalable if you think of it as a system. So if you're mapping out a customer journey, you can map out a customer journey with emotion in mind. What do we want a customer to feel at this point? What do we think a customer is going to feel at this point? How can we change the way a customer feels at this point? You can do that. You can treat it as a system, and then it is a scalable model. We sometimes do these experiments and step through customer journeys in detail. And when you're doing that, the question to ask is just that: how do you feel? Not just, does it work? And I do think other retailers, in fact, I had a meeting with another retailer last week who's online only, and they are setting up they're planning to set up a new physical store for the first time. And this is a friend, it's a different category, I want to help. And they've
a lot of people are doing that.
A lot of people, yeah. You have to look for analogies and look for help. And a lot of pure play online retailers are now looking to get into physical. So he had come into this conversation thinking very operationally. He was asking questions like, how do we control shrinkage? Where do we put the baskets? Or, all these kind of like very mechanical operational questions. And my only advice to him was to flip it completely to this point of step through every single inch of the customer journey. You have to find a way to mock it up even before you've built the store. And you have to walk every single step, and you have to feel every single step. And as you're doing that, just ask yourself, how does it feel? How does it feel? How does it feel? And that was my advice to how to begin the design of a new retail format. And if you'd asked me the same question, or if I'd had that same meeting 5 years ago when I was working in grocery, I wouldn't have said that. I would have probably said, here's how you control shrinkage. Here's how you reduce labor costs. Here's how you make the checkout experience as efficient as possible. So I've changed by working in beauty for 4 years.
What have you learned as a leader then? I think it's beautiful what you just said, because you had to shift from operational to think about feelings. How did that change you professionally?
Do you know, I will confess it wasn't that easy at the beginning for me, going to work at Mecca, but I do feel like I've experienced some sort of relatively profound observations going into an all-female environment. So Mecca I think it's around 95% women. And it's, of course, that's mainly in the stores, it's even more. I think it might be 96 or 97% women. And we serve women, right? So it makes absolute sense. And also the business is built on the basis of female empowerment and Gender equality is one of our driving forces. So it's ended up the way that it should have. But it's even the same in the support center. It may not be 95%, but it's probably 85 or 90% women as well. And I've spent my whole life working in relatively male-dominated environments. So one of the observations I had early on at Mecca was, wow, imagine what it felt like for those women who were sitting in rooms of, sometimes I've been sat in boardrooms with 17 men and 3 women. Like that's not unusual, right? And when the tables are turned and it's flipped the other way, you then are able to empathize and start to feel like how that may have felt for people at that time. And things have changed a lot anyway over the years, right? Things are much more evenly balanced in most companies. But so first of all, I was a little bit uncomfortable at the beginning. And I probably did stub my toe a few times in terms of the style and had to like tweak probably my style a little bit in management and leadership and, how you challenge and how you ask questions, and gradually learning a way that sort of felt more appropriate, felt more right, and I think worked better for the environment I was in. But once I got through that early stage, I have absolutely loved the environment. And I do believe it is more collaborative than any environment I've seen before. I don't know if it's really just Mecca or whether it's something to do with the fact that it's 95% women. I honestly don't know, and I never will know. But what I can tell you is in Mecca, I mean, the team is some of the most devoted team because they love the industry too, right? So, we attract incredible talent. It is the comparison with previous companies, next level in terms of, just sheer smarts, right? It's quite, it's quite something. But then the devotion to the cause, to the business, to each other, and the level of collaboration, I've not seen anything like it. And I wonder whether that is also one of Mecca's differentiators. I wonder.
Yeah. Well, would you bring some of these emotions back in grocery? Do you think that will help?
I think not just grocery. I think many retailers could look at this, whether it's beauty or whether it's Mecca. I think many retailers could, and I think they do. I think they do look. They all want to. At this week I've been here, and like I said earlier, just being known to be part of Mecca, people want to know because it has a reputation. And it's kind of funny being a man talking about a company that's all about women. I sometimes feel a little bit of a fraud, if you know what I mean, because
we women, we welcome everybody.
I never don't feel welcomed, but I sometimes wonder, am I the right person to be talking about these things? But I think at Mecca, as long as you believe in what we're trying to do, right, and as long as you can demonstrate, I think if it's real, then it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. But I sometimes think when you're talking about these things about women, it sometimes feels a little bit like, do I have the right to make these comments?
You're talking about your perspective of being a male in a female heavy industry, which is your perspective. Yeah. And what would be your advice to someone? I think retail has been shifting. You have a career in retail. I'm sure you give this advice differently years ago. What would be your advice today for someone that is getting into retail leadership?
I think, would it have changed? There's so many things you could say. I think my view on leadership is that people do want to be led, right? People want autonomy for sure, right? And you can give people autonomy and you can lead them. But ultimately, I think people do want to be led. They want direction. I think as a leader, one of the privileges you have is to lead people in a way or to a place that they may not have otherwise gone, right? Now, I've heard other people say that and it's resonated strongly with me. And I think as a leader, that's your job. Right, so you don't have to be shy about it. You don't have to be afraid to push people or pull people or encourage people. But know that if you have taken, if you can see that you've helped someone achieve more or go further than they would have without you as a leader, that's the ultimate goal and it's the ultimate satisfaction. So I think my and that's the job. So my advice to future leaders would be, don't hold back. Yeah, lead the way you want to lead because that's what you're supposed to do.
Very good. I have to tell you that he was a leader who pushed me to be in front of the camera. I would have never done that if it wasn't for him. And here we are.
Here you are.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure. I'm happy that we crossed our paths here in Singapore, and now we all have to go to Australia to see Mecca. Is there any plan of expansion so we can go anywhere else?
Look, who knows? We think we've got something special. We know that there are many places that would love to see us there. We've got something special. Who knows? Our focus at the moment is very much where we are and making that the best we can possibly make it for our customers. But who knows?
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll catch up in 1 year to see where you are.
Definitely. Thank you.
That was such a refreshing conversation. I love how Ian flipped the usual script. Less about efficiency, more about emotion. A few things really stuck with me. First, the idea that emotion can be scaled if you build the right culture and invest in people. Second, how Mecca trains not just for product knowledge, but for empathy. They actually design every part of the customer journey by asking, how should this feel? And finally, Ian's reminder that in a world full of AI, the human connection is going to become the real luxury. This was more than a story about beauty retail. It was a reminder of what's possible when you lead with purpose. I hope you are as inspired as I am, and next week we'll continue to talk about people. I'll bring here the episode we recorded live in Singapore on stage of NRF APAC on how happy employees make better customer experiences. See you next Tuesday.